All right, welcome to the GAF, Coach Carl Ince. Just let me start by saying how what a privilege this is. I just finished having a podcast with my old principal, and I feel like I'm doing this circuit where I'm talking to all of my old men. Well, not even old, but
That's all right.
lifetime mentors. So thank you so much for doing this for me, and I know like you're not one for pomp and exuberance. Not that that's what this is, but I know like to be able to come and talk, and so it's really important to me, and I just want you to know that. So thank you so much for doing this.
I should thank you.
How are you doing?
Okay, battling on.
Yeah, I was wondering like you're coming up on a big milestone next month, the big 8-0.
Yes,
How you feeling about that?
feeling a great sense of achievement of being among you guys, leaving England and coming here, and not regretting for a minute because of the type of people I've met and had to interact with and coaching and so on. I feel satisfied.
Since you've left England, I mean, you've never looked back really. Have you any regrets about coming and moving on from that life?
Absolutely none. None at all.
A lot of people don't know, well, at least the non-squash people, that, you were a very accomplished national squash coach for a number of years here. And, but what they don't know is your background.
It's all right.
But you lived in England for a number of years before moving back here.
Since I was 16 until 35 years on.
Okay. Why come back to Guyana after migrating so young?
Well, there are more than one reasons, but the first reason was never quite feeling that England was home. And then after making visits backward and forward here a couple of times, I felt that eventually I would come home no matter what. And after doing several different things over there and being faced with, we don't always like to say, but being faced with knowing that you don't really belong.
What do you mean by that?
Don't really belong to England. And that things are happening there that you feel if you were back in your own native land that you wouldn't have to put up with that kind of thing. That was one of the reasons that I thought later on I would come home, but I wasn't quite ready yet until I was invited by Robert Corbin to come back and coach. He went to England and we played squash for a while. He says, "Why don't you come back home? You have something to offer Guyana." And I said, "Me?" Thinking that what could I ever offer to Guyana? But I was thinking on the academic side.
Yeah.
And he said, no, you can come back. You can do something for sports. And that's why I came back. One of the reasons I came back.
Wow. It's funny because you say, "Oh, what could I have offered Guyana?" And you're thinking the academic side.
Yes.
But the way I see it is that you have had such an impact on so many young people in a way academics could never. You know what I mean? And I say this because you're so much more than a coach. You're a life mentor, and I think multiple people can attest to this. And I always thought, like, growing up, I saw you so much more than just a person telling me what to do on the squash court. I remember between like our class, our sessions or whatever, we would sit down outside, drink a cup of tea, and then, we would just talk about life. And that was such a big part of my development. I'm wondering, and I know you do that with many other people, I'm wondering, is this something you've noticed, or is it just sort of the relationship you've had with people in general?
Well, I have to say this, that you and others have said similar things, and I wasn't quite aware that I was doing that. It was just happening because of you and other people. I just responded.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I set out to do. But of course, if you didn't kind of prompt it, I probably never wouldn't have been what are you saying I am. It was true as a consequence
Yeah.
of whatever was happening. Me talking and whatever was happening.
Yeah. No, so I'm wondering if when you came back to Guyana, though, were there any challenges like readapting to life here coming from England?
Not on the farm, it wasn't, but when m- I had one or two experience at the Georgetown Club where I didn't truly felt that I belonged there, and which I won't go into details about that. But because of that, I thought I wasn't in a hurry to coach.
Mhm.
Even when people said to me, "Why don't you want to coach down there?" I said, "No, no, no, I'm not comfortable there." But that might not have been the Georgetown Club; it might just be me.
Yeah.
You see, so I'm not putting any blame. But then, after being on the farm for a long time and not doing anything, you're just doing work, work, work. Because in the beginning there are no rewards on the farm, and I decided to put down a squash court before I even built the house. That is.
Yeah.
And
Which just sorry, just to pause you there. So I don't know if you want to mention this, but the rumor is that you build the courts before you even built your house.
that's right.
Where were
That's
you
right.
living? Where were you living?
In a container, a 40 feet container that I brought my belongings from England,
No way.
and we turned it into a kind of caravan. Like
Hmm.
we lived in there. We lived in there for 6 years actually before this house was built.
How'd your wife feel about that?
At first, not too pleased, and she made several trips backward and forward to England. I suppose that kept her from being completely bored.
Yeah.
But as I said, I built a court and I started practicing. And then I went to London and met Dr. Marcus, you know him,
Yeah.
Marcus, and a couple of his friends. I coached them for a little while, and they went to Georgetown Club, and people noticed a difference in the playing. And then they start inquiring about me, and that's how I came to
Yeah.
start coaching Georgetown Club.
This happened by just coaching a doctor from Linden, and then
Dr.
word got around.
Yeah, Dr. Marcus and Oren Gordon. But even when Dr. Marcus said they'd like you to go and coach down there because they're getting some youngsters ready for the Caribbean tournament, you would have been one of those youngsters. I think you were probably under 13 then or so. I still didn't go until Bobby Fernandes had what they call a fun day, and they all went up to Linden and played, and then I was asked to come over and play. I went across and played. Introductions were made and so on. And that's how I couldn't say no.
Yeah. What was the state of squash back then? I mean, you compare it to now where, we've been almost 2 decades of Caribbean junior champions. We've just had a great legacy in the region. We've produced so many great players, including Nicholet Finance, who made it to, the top of the world rankings, the top 20, top 30.
Yeah.
It must have not always been like that
Well,
when you found it, at least.
what I would say about that is that because I'm coming from England where the level's much higher, when I saw the group I had to coach, Bobby said, well, in 3 months' time, they're going to the Bahamas. And I looked at the group and I thought, 3 months? There's nothing I can do in 3 months. Nothing I can do to make a difference. But then he said, but you haven't seen the standard in the Caribbean yet. So I said, okay, I'm not putting anybody down. But the 3 months went very quickly. And he said, I was trying to duck out of going to the Bahamas. It would have been.
Why? Because you didn't feel ready, or you didn't
No,
feel
I didn't
experienced?
feel that I was going with a team that would make it, so to speak, which is the wrong way to think. I should be thinking, well, let's go and see what there is there, but I wasn't thinking like that. I just wanted to pop in there with a great team and win, and that was me saying, no, I don't think I could go and so on. Anyway, I went, and needless to say, we got trashed. Big time, eh? Big time. There was one girl from Barbados, I think it was, Liliana White, who crashed Nicholet as well. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, how these other coaches feeling so nice, they beat us up and this, that, and the other. And I remember saying to Nicholet, I said, Nicholet, trust me, that girl will never beat you again. And she said, you think so? I said, yes. She said, why? I said, well, the things that I saw happened, I know that Nicholet will very quickly overcome those things and beat her. So said, so done.
Yeah.
Cut a long story short. That girl never beat Nicholet again.
Strangely enough, I think last year they played each other in the vets category because
Really?
Nicholet's playing vets. Yeah, so I think when we showed up to Cayman for Casa, we were undecided if we were putting Nicholet to play vets or on the team, and Liliana's playing vets.
Wow.
And one day at the bar, I think the story was I heard, and I hope I'm not telling it wrong, but Liliana was at the bar, and then she was all happy and pumped to play her matches, and then Nicholet walks up to the bar and they get in a conversation, and she mentions, yeah, I got the over fortis tomorrow. She's like, what? Oh, you playing over fortis? So it was a shock for a lot of people because you don't expect someone of that caliber to but we kind of needed her more for the vets points.
Yeah.
So and how amazing of her to actually agree to even do that, being at that level. It was just all for the team because we're so deep in the women's. But so it's funny how you started off your career with the two of them and now they're playing each other in vets.
Yeah, I wish I was there.
Yeah. So after that first Casa, then I mean, it must have kickstarted something for you, some sort of momentum, because you haven't really left since. Well, you're retired now, but I mean, semi-retired. Yeah, I know they force you to come out sometimes.
Well, after that Bahamas, the next one was Trinidad. In Trinidad, Point de Pierre, and we came second. So to me, that was a big boost, climbing the ladder. And of course, since then, it's been backward and forward. But I must say, I look back and I wondered what it would be like, what it would have been like if the parents weren't so helpful with you guys. They were there to pick you all up, bring you all between lessons from school and this, that, and the other. That was something I wasn't accustomed to. I coached in England, and I didn't see anything like that.
Really?
So I've got to put a lot of emphasis on the importance of that.
I was just going to ask you, how important is the parental involvement with kids? Because there's only so much a coach/mentor can do. What is the role of parents to supplement that development of the child?
Well, the top thing is to not let the child feel that they will get to the top immediately. Some parents might say to the children, "Oh, you're good, and you should beat this person and beat that person." The parents in my time didn't do that. They don't know. We had chat now and again, but not enough. I didn't interact enough with parents. So I try to tell students or coaches coming up now that was a very bad thing of me, not going to meet the parents and talking to them with the children. But they did themselves, And today I'm noticing that some of them are expecting too much
of the child.
Too early. Too much too early. And then the children would, if they're very interested, they will go on, of course. But if they're on borderline, they back off. And parents, the part that parents play is to be really always just supporting the children, just telling the children, yes, we'll try again, why it didn't go good this time and so on. I didn't help in that way. I should have been chatting with parents about things like that, but they did. And I didn't have a problem. Like your parents gave me a free hand, if I can speak about you.
No, of course, yes, you can.
They gave me a free hand. They never hindered anything at all. If I was doing something that I thought a parent mightn't understand because it may seem contrary, like for instance, if I can give you an example, I'm teaching one of you to play correctly all the time off this stance. That's the correct stance. That's the best stance to play it off. And then when you got to a certain level, I had to change that and say, well, look, you won't always be in a position to play off that stance. So now let's take it off what we call then the wrong foot, things like that. I should have talked to parents about things like that. Because a particular parent come and said to me, how could you teach him to play off the wrong foot? But now I look back, they didn't know. And the little things like that, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any problems with parents in those days.
You know, it's weird because you talk about being in a place like the Georgian Club where we host our squash for people that don't know. And you feel a bit uncomfortable there based on the, I'm assuming, I know you don't want to,
No, no,
you're a
no.
very positive person, but, and just because I know the Georgian Club, you know, based on the strong characters that are there, you know. So even when you're dealing with parents who are essentially employing you to deal with their children, how do you as a coach manage to offset the interaction? Because obviously there's some parents that really want to get involved and overtly so, and they, for lack of a better term, think they know everything, so they may as well be coaching them. But how do you sort of manage that relationship?
Well, when parents said anything to me that I think is not good for the coaching or the student, I would explain to them that what they're saying, if I wasn't a coach, I'd be saying the same thing. Only because I'm a coach and understand where this is leading, that it seemed wrong to them. But if I was a parent and I want the best for my child, I would be thinking like they're thinking, you know. And in that comfortable kind of atmosphere, they start to trust you. And also, I wanted to make a point to let parent know that I want the best for our country. So if I say anything or do anything that's not so good for their child, please understand that the bottom line is I want the team, the country to go forward. And then to me, then they would know that if I do anything or say anything that's not so nice or not so agreeable to them, that it's not because I don't like the student or I don't like them. It's because I think this is the best way for us to go forward. You get that confidence, it's no problem.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm sure in the early years though, you know, having started out living in the container and building the squash court, and excuse me for calling it the container. I know it sounds bad. You know, it must have been not an easy path to go on. And I think, you know, you have an amazing life now. I mean, this is just, we're sitting here and I remember in my early days coming here right in this house after you built it. And then I remember before it was even painted, you know, me and Raphael, who you know, would be right here doing split steps into ghosting. You know, we'd be up at 6 a.m. and so I kind of really had a real time experience of seeing you build this farm and this place and what essentially has become a squash academy for a lot of people. You know, what was that journey like? Because you know, I know you're a very modest guy, and you never talk down about yourself or complain about hardship. But I would like to think that, you know, looking at how amazing this is now, you look back and think, wow, like I did it, you know?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you, it wasn't by design. I do one little thing that I think should be done, and then it grew. You went on to something else, you went on to something else. I don't think that I looked into the future and said, here's where my own development, that is, here's where I want to be. And so I will do X, Y, Z to get there. It was all about we want to win. Even though I had friends say to me, well, you know, you think too much about winning. Try and make sure they enjoy it. I say thank you because we were taught to do that. Bring fun into it. Make sure they enjoy it. So every so often somebody would say something to me that would help me even though they don't know. Like, I give you an instance. I was teaching the swing to someone and they misunderstood me. Whatever it is I was telling them, they misunderstood me and did what they thought I said. And I looked at it and thought, that's better than what I was telling them to do. So when you accept these things, you must have an open mind and know you're going to learn from everybody. Everyone has something to teach you. And I think going going to coaching with that attitude, there's not a lot of room for failure. And of course, you guys are talented to start with, so that makes my job easy.
Yeah. What was it like? Like, I mean, with dealing with so many generations of kids through squash, what is that experience like? Because it seems like once you start winning, it almost ups the pressure. You kind of have like this pressure to continue breeding the next crop of winners, and that can't be easy because, no, across generations especially, no two kids are the exact same, or, no two batches of kids.
That is true. But over the years, I learned to apply more methods instead of a fixed method. Say this is how I'm going to coach Alex, and once it works, I'm going to coach everybody else like that. No, it's not going to work. So I have to keep searching for method that will apply to that person. And so when one generation move out, I didn't say to myself, well, I've got carbon copy of what I did, so I'll take it on to the next generation. I had to do it accordingly. So maybe that helped a lot. Plus the fact that the students, they were thinking they're under pressure as well, because Alec was champion, so now they want to be champion. And everything come together. It wasn't no big, fantastic idea of mine. Things just grew slowly.
And this was just all under the attitude of you wanting to win and
just want to
prove
get the
yourself.
best out of them. Not just to prove for me, but wanting to get the best out of them. And for Guyana. Guyana came first.
Yeah.
Every time.
What were the hardships of that, like dealing with kids? Like, I mean, what makes it a student particularly difficult to deal with?
Well, I had to be careful how fast a student is improving. Those that improve rapidly, I used to pay special attention to, because I knew there would come a time when they'd glance at me and say, well, he can't even beat me. I could beat him now, so he can't teach me anything. So I prepared them for that. I would say little things like, I'll do this practice with you, and then I would probably win. And I know fine well that a couple of practices like this, they'll beat me. So I'll tell them things like, Muhammad Ali was the best boxer in the world. And his coach couldn't beat him, but he still listened to the coach. I'm paving the way so they listen to me. Little things like that.
Yeah. I remember, and I do remember you making a lot of boxing references back in the day when we'd sort of go through these concepts and stuff like that. And matter of fact, talking about difficult kids, I will admit that, there were many a times where when I started winning, and I remember winning my first Caribbean championship, I think, in a way, and I don't know if we've spoken about this before, but it kind of went to my head. And I thought that somewhere in there that, okay, you've taken me so far, and now I kind of just have to go on and find better things, so to speak.
Yes,
And I think that was on my part a very arrogant way of looking at it. And I will admit that I think it's natural for a young child to listen. But my point to that is that, I came crawling back eventually because.
Oh, and say you came.
Well, no, I did. I definitely found my way back to you because, not to say that I couldn't find stuff elsewhere as well, but the foundation of who I am and what drove me to success came from our relationship. So I kind of, the reason I'm saying this is because, is there certain things that you try to teach kids, that stick with them, based on a relationship, mentorship that they perhaps may not find from just someone who's a really good player or coach,
Yeah. I'm going to admit something to you. You said, in other words, you drifted. I didn't think you would come back.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm admitting that. But when you were just about to drift, I remember sitting and watching you play, Divario or whoever it was. That
Vario.
was the time.
Uh,
And
Diara.
yeah,
Yeah.
whoever was sitting next to me stayed there throughout. And you'd come off court and I'd talk to you and you'd be looking straight into my eyes. Unlike most of them who ball like that, you'd be looking straight at me. And you go on back and you come on back. And then when they said match ball and you hit the match ball, won it, and you turn around and you look outside. I'm not going to tell you who was sitting next to me. I turned to them and said, I've lost him. He said, what do you mean by that? I said, I don't think he listened to me now. So I didn't think he would come back. But thanks, he came.
Why did you think that?
Because you were climbing at a rate that I thought you have to go outside and you have to see other people and you won't remember some of the things that I told you. Someone else will tell you now and you'll think you're hearing it for the first time. Because at the time when I was telling you, you're growing with it and it became part of you. And so when somebody else tells you something that you didn't grasp, you will believe that you'd never heard it before. I've actually proved that to a couple of students. When I've told them to do something and why they should do it, I said, there'll come a time when you won't remember I've said this to you. And they said, no, coach, I'll remember. And they went away, I think Canada. And when they came back, they said, coach, you didn't tell me about the different heights on the front wall to hit the ball. So I started laughing and looking at them. And I said, go and ask your father. And they said, okay, I will. They went and asked the father, who I happen to coach as well. And he said, coach told me that would happen. So that gave me a bit of a boost,
Yeah.
They say I don't brag, but inside I do.
Yeah. But when you have like that happens with kids who maybe get too big for their boots and turn their back and dare I say are in some ways disrespectful with their actions. You have so many other kids that are vying for your time, business to be had elsewhere. Why allow someone like myself to return and you have your open arms there? You know what I mean? Why is that why do you not even, I don't know if you ever second guessed it, but in my experience, I felt like you welcome me back with open arms and we sort of picked up where we left off.
Well, what else could I do? I was dying for you to come back. I just thought you might not. Mm-hmm. But I was still hoping you'd come back. And you and I go back so far, I could even tell you the time that I got serious and saying, I'm going to take this. I'm going to do my best with this person. I can remember the day, the time. I can even remember your mother saying to me, thanks, and you're taking an interest in my son, and blah, blah, blah. And that was at Robert's wedding.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay.
And I said, sure. I said, I don't really need telling them, but I was glad. I don't need that for anyone to ask me. I was so involved. You used to come to the Georgetown Club on the 2 days that I was there. I was there during the week at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm, I remember.
And I coach you till it's time for school. You didn't say much. You didn't. You do now, but you didn't.
Too much.
And then you would go and get your shower, off to school, come back, and let's see you on that court practicing. We could coach as best as we can. But if the student isn't like you were, dedicated, working hard, I won't get praises to say, oh, you coach Alex and he's doing well. Mm-hmm. So you see, it's both ways.
I remember I used to actually, now that you mention it, I would show up at a Georgetown club. You'd be waiting on me in your bus. Mm-hmm. You'd get up, come out. We'd play for the first half of the session. We'd take a break, have some tea, continue, and then I'd go to school.
I remember, yeah.
It's funny thinking about that because I just, it's when you get to a certain level and I'm at no significant level, by the way, but
That's your
how far,
opinion.
that's my opinion. And how far, but looking back at how far I've come personally with my personal development, I really forget those days, you know, that like where it meant it really was just running on the fact that I love this sport so much and wanted to do so well, you know, and I think like without mentorship, without guidance, like this is an opportunity so many kids across athletics in Guyana don't have, you know. I mean, many, some do, I'm sure,
Yeah,
but like,
yes,
and this is what I like about squash and what people should understand about squash is that, you know, when you choose to play this game, you're not just playing this game. You're choosing to be part of a community that does have core values and has created a legacy and is continuing to build this legacy, you know. And I kind of, I just, I'm hopeful that we could keep that up, you know.
Well, I'm depending on you all to keep it up.
Y'all.
Well, at one time I had this thought that if I could chat with you all and say, "Hey, man, I think you're the best at a drop shot or a volley cutoff or whatever it is. Why don't you take that student and make sure they can do it as well as you can, and then ask another student to do it, and another coach to do it. We could do it. We could keep going."
Yeah.
I feel so.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about your the fact that even though you're in Guyana, you're building a program here. And you know, we have this culture in Guyana where once we fill a niche, we're ready to rock back and throw up a foot and, you know, just let the funds come in. You know, granted, I know squashing didn't ever really had that much funds in the early days, but and testament to where I'm going is that despite that, you know, you still continued to hone in on your craft and get more qualified. I'm not sure what level coach you were when you came to Guyana, but well into your tenure, you were able to reach a status of level 4. Now, if you know you're the only coach here, you have tons of experience. You've been coaching squash at a regional level and seeing massive success. Why continue to go after, you know, these sort of qualifications that people who aren't in squash wouldn't really even understand?
Well, I must tell you, when I came to Guyana as a coach, I was level 2, right? And I knew that it wasn't enough to keep things or to take you all where I felt you all ought to go. And I immediately thought I would go on to England and try and get a level 3, but funds and so on, one thing and another. And there was a guy who walked up to me and I didn't even ask him. He just said, "I believe you want to go back to England and further your coaching career." And I said, "Yes." I'd never met him before. Never met him before. Don't know who he was. And he said, "Well, if you're looking for sponsorship," he said, "don't look anywhere else." He says, "I'm good for the fare to get there, the time you're there, and everything." And I looked at him and I thought, well, just like that. And he said, "In case you're wondering," he said, "I love squash. I just love squash." He said, "And every year I come home to play squash, every single year. I represent Guyana every year." He said, "I'm passionate about it. And I've seen a difference. You've made a difference, noticeable difference. And you need help, I will help you." I've never forgotten that. Now, he didn't even know me. And he would do this because he loves squash and he wanted Guyana Squash to go forward. That went big down with me. That was Alvin Calendar.
Oh.
And I thought, gosh, you know, he doesn't know me. And he did. He just foot the bill for everything. So you look at things like that, and it's nice for me to be in a position to give back. I mean, I don't think I'm as passionate as he was then and probably still is. But things like that, you look at that, and whatever contribution you could make to further that, just do it willingly.
Yeah. And so That was for your level 3.
That was my level 3.
And what's the difference between a level 3 and a level 4?
Well, the difference is so big that if I knew at the time, I wouldn't have bothered with the level 4.
Really?
It did my head in. There's so much theory work, which I'm not so good at. Management. You have to learn to manage things, which you probably think I'm not good at because you don't see me doing it. And it is about coaching the elite players. Being able to look at two players and know that you can see what little thing would make the difference. It's only little. I went for a lesson once in England, and the guy said to me, "I'm not even taking you on the court." I said, "What do you mean not taking me on the court?" He said, "Put your racket down," he said, "and sit down." Because he'd seen me play and so on. He said, "I can talk to you now for the whole session." I have to tell you, I wasn't pleased because it was 60 pounds.
60 pounds to the session.
And I thought, well, I got to pay you all this money for that. But when the session was over, I was glad to pay him more. So that's the difference.
And when you got that level 4 qualification, did you notice any changes in the way people maybe saw you as a coach, or was that sort of it was just a personal thing where you knew you had that qualification, you had that certification?
Well, I did notice that people treated me a little different because in Guyana, certification matters. In England, it doesn't matter that much. You're a level 4 coach in England and you go to a place. They say, "So what? I want you to coach me." Unless you're going like to take over a club where they're going to rely on you for everything. Level 4 hardly matters.
Yeah.
But in Guyana, I noticed that it matters. If you're not certified, they don't pay much difference to you. So in that way, yes, I noticed a different reaction from people. As if to say, well, he's taking the trouble to go all that way. We might listen a little bit more to what he has to say. It was in that context.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a level 4 is the only level of coach that has the ability to certify other coaches?
It used to be that way, but I think it's coming down now that level 3 can do that.
Okay.
I think so.
I know...
and even so, sorry, got you. Even so, I'm only allowed to certify up to level 2.
Okay.
Because onwards, you need a panel of tutors. Whereas up to level 2, just one can do it. Sorry to cut you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Please feel free to cut me whenever you want.
Where's that knife?
So the reason I'm bringing this up is because what a lot of people don't know as well is that you not only certify local coaches in Guyana, but you also certify various coaches within the region, which is a massive thing for the development of the sport in the region. People are flying in here to do the qualifications. They do it right here at your farm on your amazing squash courts. But I don't want to ruffle any feathers or talk about something you're uncomfortable with. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, we in Guyana and the region really need all the help we can get to further push the game, push the knowledge of the game, and do it at the highest level where, we set the standard of squash in the region. The Caribbean community is developed and given the same opportunities everyone gets through this vessel of squash. And I know there was an incident where there was some criticism of you gaining your level 4 by someone from England who is, I think, you would have to tell me what his position is in English squash, but he was maybe discrediting your qualifications and the things you're doing within the region.
Yeah. Well, how that came about is that he couldn't imagine England squash giving me that privilege to certify other coaches. Either it's not commonly done or whatever, for whatever reason. So when he went to Trinidad, where I did about 11 or 12 students, certified them level 1 and level 2. He straight away said, no, 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 no. Nobody can just come to another country and do it. Who is this Carl Ince? Blah, blah, blah. And so straight away he doubted it. Now that's fine if he's never heard of it before. But what he should have done was do some research, find out if it's true or not before start saying, in so many words, I'm an imposter because this isn't done. No guy can't just come from Guyana and do this, blah, 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 blah. He should have tried and find out from either from England Squash or better still, if he followed the code of conduct, coach's code of conduct, he should have tried and get in touch with me and say, what's this I'm hearing? Is this really true? Is this done? Were you authorized to do this? He didn't do these things. He just, as Guyanese would say, he just bad-mouthed me, or I don't know how to say it, and tell people that I shouldn't have been there to do this thing. I'm not qualified to do this, and you never even met me before. Now you can imagine what damage that did to me.
How do you find out?
Well, the strange thing was that I happened to be in Trinidad. I was acquiring a racehorse. So I went to Trinidad to see the horse and so on, and that's the exact time this happened. So one of the guys from Trinidad, one of the coaches, knew I was in Trinidad, and I don't know how he found me. Can't remember details, but he said, "Carl, look, I've got my laptop here with me, and I want to show you something." And all of that was on it. About this guy coming and what he's done and what he said. So the guy said to me, "Look, I'm showing you this, so whatever, if something is wrong or this guy made a mistake or whatever it is, giving you a chance to, to defend this." So I immediately got on the phone to England Squash, and the timing was bad, because in England it would have been night. And all night I had this on my mind, what the hell? These people think I'm an imposter, blah, blah, blah. I had to wait till the next morning. Morning in Trinidad, England would be 5 hours ahead. And I rang up and spoke to someone. And the apologies. The woman said to me, who was in charge, she said, "Look, he got on to England Squash and spoke to somebody, but not the head." And they said, "No, we don't know Carl Ince." And so that's what he did. Anyway, got a long story short, I got hold of him. I spoke with him. He never, ever apologized. No, nothing.
Really?
No. But England Squash apologized to Trinidad and sent a general letter. Oh, I must tell you this, that the president of Trinidad Squash and somebody else from Barbados and so on, they all got together and demanded an apology from England Squash. But the guy...
So when you got on the phone with him, what was the conversation?
Just, "I don't know you, nobody know you, you're not supposed to be doing this. Who gave you the authority to do it?" In an arrogant way like that. But I was quite upset, and I didn't want to start saying things that I shouldn't say. So I just played it down. I went through that course. And even when it was all over, either he rang me or I can't remember if I rang him, he still didn't apologize.
Yeah. I bring this up because, not for the gossip factor of it, but I bring this up because this is what we as a region and, as a sporting community are sort of challenged with, in a way where, we've built our own capacity within here. We have proved that we can produce some amazing players, but someone who comes from the first world country with a self-prescribed authority on what's appropriate based on his subjective opinion can come in and derail what is decades of work and foundation.
Just like that.
Just like that. And that kind of really annoys me because, this is like this idea of And by the way, this person will never be back here. You know,
No,
will never certify anybody in this region, will never contribute and give his life, but can come here and derail
something like that.
someone else. You know, so, and I bring that up because I know it's been a challenging part of your legacy. And I want you to know that, you know, nobody is ever doubtful about what you have done and continue to do for us. And
Thank you.
we appreciate that.
Thank you. This at one point when that was happening, I did feel like hell with it. You know, didn't give up. You try hard and then things will just pull you back down. It crossed my mind, but then I thought, why should I allow someone else to come in and do that?
Yeah.
Why should I let him dictate what happens to my future? So I said no, I couldn't do it. But it was a horrible feeling. The thought that people could just like you said, just come in and do that. Can you imagine the reverse?
Yeah.
Can you imagine us going there and do that?
Unheard of. You know, but speaking of qualifications, I mean, if he wasn't such an idiot, he would know that you've, you know, produced one of the best squash players in the world from this part of this region.
He
you know?
actually knew her, you know. Well, he
Oh, did
knows
he?
her.
Oh, did
He
he?
knows her.
Did he know you were the coach?
No.
Yeah. What was that like? Because, you know, for people who know Nicholet Finance, who's a fantastic athlete and, you know, someone definitely a source of pride for Guyana in the sporting community. And I want to preface this by saying that, you know, a lot of when I started to become really good at squash, you know, for my standard, I used to base a lot of my worth on how well I did against Nicholet, you know?
That was the hurdle.
That was a hurdle for me. And, you know, it's weird to say that because we were in different gender categories, you know, but because she was just our...
Sure, that was the right thing to say. There you go. Sure.
You know, you know, despite her being, you know, just on the world circuit and the physicality is obviously very different, but knowing that I had an upper hand on her at a certain point was very, like, as you know, male dominating as it sounds, it's just a testament to how good she is and how much respect I have for her, you know?
Of course.
And, you know, so I always judge myself by her, and I think what she's done is amazing. But why I'm saying this is that, you know, what was that like for you? Because you got to look back now and be like, you know, I've produced this squash player who's set the bar for the region and then retires, goes on to win a world vets title.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's amazing what she's doing, and now is giving back to the sport, which, to be honest, I never thought she would do. Not because I think she doesn't care about the future, but just she's given so much to the sport already.
Already, yes.
Why turn around and then now give back, you know? So what was your sort of philosophy when, you know, developing someone of that stature?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the person, she herself. Because I can tell you that, I think I've said it before now, no matter how hard you coach, no matter how hard you mentor what you do, if the person isn't as dedicated as they ought to be, it won't happen. And Nicholet is above average dedication. Let me say this first. You were one of my best students, but she was the best. From the point of view that if I asked Nicholet to do 50 strokes on the forehand or wherever it is, she'd do 100. Now, how many of them, when they get to 40, if I said, yeah, that was 30, they'd give me they start quarreling. Say, no, coach, that was 40. And that was 40. And I'm saying it's 30. Nicholet would go above whatever you're asking to do all the time. And she wouldn't, if I said, oh, that was a good shot and it wasn't, she'd turn and give me a look. She doesn't want to be compromised in any way, and that kind of dedication. So, all in all, what I'm saying, it wasn't just, I would like to say I was partly responsible instead of you saying I've produced,
Yeah.
you know? And my philosophy to that is that once you have the right person to work with, don't think you know everything what to teach them. Seek help elsewhere. Ask people things, you know. Be open-minded about everything. Don't just say I'm the coach and I can do this and I can do that. Continue to learn. I learned lots of things from her. You know, coaching her and watching what's happening. I learned things from her that I could pass it on to you all. Things like that. So when she says thank you, coach, I say thank you, Nicholet, too. 2 ways.
Yeah. Have you come across, young girls who you can see maybe a twinkle of what you saw in her?
Yes, I have come across a couple, but they lack the dedication.
Do you think that's a thing with boys and girls where maybe girls aren't as sports dedicated, or do you think it goes both ways?
To tell you the truth, on the contrary, I find it easier to coach girls. Or is that not a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I find it much easier to coach girls. They listen more. They rely on what you're saying. And they're happy when they please you. Whereas boys are not.
Yeah.
Boys are hard to work.
Yeah. When you, in this day and age, like for example, there's so much that is involved in a young child's life that we didn't have back in my day and maybe the generation before. I always tell people I feel like I was the last crop to experience life without the technological boom, where I was still able to have a childhood that was relatively detached from technology.
Yeah.
And the social media digital age. What's the difference to you from the kids back then versus the kids now?
Well, social media, it has its advantages too. I mean, people would look and see how this person plays and rewind and look at it over and over and so forth and follow all that's going on. But one of the things I don't like about it is that a player would see a top player do something fantastic and straight away go and start trying to do it without being there yet. And that's hard work for me because I am having to tell this student, hey, you're not ready for that yet. And the reason you're not ready for that is because you got to get past this here that's more important, more of a foundation to get you there. And half the time they don't listen. They go away and want to do the corkscrew and things like that. But if I had to say, if it's an advantage, I'd rather say it's an advantage than a disadvantage.
No.
Yes. Even though I'm not that way, I'm not high tech, and so on. But I can see the advantage of it, especially when it comes to video analysis. In your time, I couldn't say to you, that wasn't right. Wasn't quite right. Let's try it this way, because I'm trying to soften it to you. I don't say to you, that's wrong. I said, that wasn't quite right. Why not try this or why not try that? I don't have to do that now. I just have to say to them, I'll film you doing it and show you. And I watched the faces. And I could see they didn't believe me when I was telling them it wasn't quite right. You didn't have that.
Yeah.
And if you had that, I am sure, good as you are now, you would have been better. I think so.
Yeah. Well, I do agree. I think even having like access to Squash TV, which is an amazing resource, even at my age.
Exactly.
I could look at that and analyze for hours and just go back and forth. And I start regarding myself too. And just again,
Exactly.
same thing.
Yeah, video analysis.
Yeah. Super important in sports. I think a lot of people don't maybe understand the importance of that. A lot of people also can't look at themselves, but that's something you just got to get over.
A little thing like, well, not a little thing, it's a big thing. like teaching the swing, right? I believe that it's like having tools in your toolbox. You teach a student to have a high swing, a medium swing, a low swing, no swing at all. And then you teach them how to use it at the right time. Now, some people would come along and say, no high swing at all. And the same person that says that, I sit and watch them. And when they get into the back and it's difficult, the racket goes full leverage and hit it. So there's no hard, fast and rule about what's right and what's wrong. You have to see what's appropriate for that shot. But if you don't have the tools in your box, you can't switch from this tool to that tool, like having screwdrivers. You need a small screwdriver for this job, a big screwdriver for that job.
Yeah.
If you didn't learn to use both or have both in your toolbox, it's no good.
Yeah.
I mean, a ball's coming back at a speed. You have no time for a big swing. So then it comes in where you short swing, stabbing at the ball and things like that. That's for you to work out later on. But I believe you should be armed. So that when the time comes, I mean, you use it different to the other fella, and that's what makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to pivot back quickly to, last year was, I think, the first year since you've semi-retired that you haven't made the Caribbean Junior Championships, which is, for those who don't know, it's what you've created your legacy on, Caribbean Junior Championships, the Caribbean Junior Squash Championships. Now, last year was the first year that you did not travel with the team. We had some fantastic coaches going with them, people who knew what they were doing. However, Guyana lost in both the girls and boys final, in my opinion at least, and feel free to be contrary, but in a very heartbreaking way. I want to say the girls more so were, I think that could have gone either way. I think they did leave it all out there. But then the boys, I thought that, that was a bit more contentious, in that I think that could have been won. But, I'm not faulting anyone. I think that's the nature of sport, right? Like this is the kind of life lessons that really make you have legacies like we've had.
Yes.
So I was kind of wondering, like that must have made you feel something, not being there. And I know, by the way, that you're semi-retired for a reason, but to sort of witness that from abroad, and then see based on kind of what we went into it as champions. So how was that for you? And then sort of looking forward as to where we're going now.
Well, it hurt. First of all, it hurt a lot because looking at what was happening, I thought we could win. It was down to one match here, boys, and it was down to one match there. Not that was the final match, but if it had gotten across that, and could have, in my opinion, they could have gotten across it. I mean, if you're up against a team that's better than you are, and you get trashed or whatever, you just hold your hands up. But when you're there and it's happening, and you could see that we could win this, So no blames nowhere. Although I did speak to some of them when I got back and told them what I thought, straight out, no messing. Yes, what it did, it hurt, and it made me think more about how best I can still get involved. Physically, I can forget it. I can't run on a squash court. I can't pressure feed them like I used to pressure feed you. But it's a learning experience, like you say. The coaches that were there were doing a good job and everything, but right down to, when you're on the court, it's you. You make the decisions, no matter what you were told when you were there. But and in a way, I'm thinking to myself, good God, look how many times we've won. Why should one person win all the time? Just that we want to win. But when you still have to look back, in my career time, I've known coaches there every year, prop in sorrow, like that. thinking there's no hope. And many times I thought, how would I feel if that was me? So if we have to lose because, we're good enough, but something went wrong, we have to understand that there were times when we won the best team. I remember that. Something went wrong, a little luck here and there, and we won. So how you feel about losing is one thing, you can't help that. But then you have to remember, the world doesn't belong to
Yeah.
one person.
I feel like it would do us well. And if like moving on, I think it would. It's a good lesson.
Good.
It's a good reality
Yes.
check.
I think that's a nice way of looking at
Yeah.
it. Yes.
I mean, strangely enough, I think over my career, some of my most memorable matches were losses.
Really?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, like when you're there, and I had one last year, and
Incidentally, congratulations, one of the best matches I saw you play.
oh, did you see it?
Even though you lost, it's the best I've seen because what I saw there was that you went on court feeling this is a brilliant player I'm playing against. I can't make mistakes. There's no margin for errors. And you went on there and changed things, did things that you wouldn't normally, or played shots that you might not have played if you weren't playing that particular. And that's,
I thought I was always good at that, though. like adapting, even though if it was uncomfortable.
yeah, that is true. But against a fella like that,
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
imagine,
Well, the man beat me so bad in the first two games. I thought I
saw.
was gonna quit after. I said,
saw.
done with this. And then the coach, the Raman, who was the coach, between games, said, he asked me how you feeling, and I said, I feel like in despair. I don't even know what to feel. Like I don't even know what's happening. I'm getting my ass handed to me right now.
Yeah.
And he said, well, why don't you just try playing to his forehand? Why don't you do that?
Aye.
Playing to his forehand? What are you talking about? And he's like, well, you're getting your ass beat anyway.
So why
He
not?
seems to not be doing much on his forehand side. What have you got to lose? I said, you're right. Let me do that. Because I was being negative,
Yes,
And I
yes.
think it's just feeling sorry for myself. And so I go on court and I start playing to the forehand. And I just realized it's not that it was winning me points, but what it did, it was
Disrupt.
it opened up the court for me to start moving him.
Yes.
And from there, I just started to build off of that. So it's funny how like experience and like really just trying new things, and then obviously it gets 2-2, and then in the last game I had match ball,
It was brilliant.
messed that up.
That was something.
Yeah, but something with my philosophy on squash is that
But congratulations to Raman. He saw the right thing.
yeah, definitely.
Yes,
Oh, he's a
yes.
great coach,
Yes.
a great guy to talk to, in this space. But I always thought that my philosophy is that at squash there'll always be more talented people, better people. But I think one thing we all have in common is like the effort and most people, one thing that sort of puts us on the same plane is that you get to give as much as you can. Nobody can take that away from you. So I can either give everything and choose to die here because that's the hill I want to die on. I know it sounds dramatic, but I'm like,
No.
I'm like, definitely, like, I'm willing to die knowing that I've given every single ounce of me
What an asset.
to
that
this,
What an asset that is. Wow. Yes, in the old days, many times we pull through because of that very thing you just said. Give everything. I mean, you, Christian Jeffrey, DJ Dias, Mr. Dependable, we all made it happen. I was just there kind of.
In closing, I just want to ask you a few more questions. Moving forward, like, I know you're going to be a bit less involved. You have a lot of other things going on. You have an amazing family you want to spend time with, and you have other projects you're doing. But what is your hope for squash in Guyana and the region over the next 10 to 20 years? Like, what would you like to see it become?
Well, I would like to see Guyana Squash get to the level where, well, not just Guyana Squash, the Caribbean Squash, get to the level where they can compete abroad, and abroad, not just South America, beyond that, you know. And that can only come with good programs, putting good programs together. We have the coaches now. And if I may say so, I would like to help by interacting with coaches more, you know, our coaches. Not just teaching them, but chatting with them and finding out what they would like to do and what I would like to see happen, and so on, just like that. I think if we do that, um, coaches won't have to learn too much by mistakes. You know, I mean, you can tell a person, look, I did this like you're thinking of doing, and it took X amount of time to get there. But when I got there, I realized that if I'd done X, 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 I would have gotten there earlier. That's the kind of thing, because we all get there, but the time it takes to get there. And if we pull together like that, you know, it's you, Nicholet, Sam, all the other coaches. If we come together every week or month or whatever it is, and do something like that, chat about what's happening, put everything on the table, and let's work things out. Not necessarily me tutoring all the time, you know, get good feedbacks and we work things out together.
Given all the challenges you faced as a independent contractor coach coming up, you know, I don't know if you've been following the national budget, but there's a lot of money being given to squash. I'm not saying money makes a difference, but are there resources that could be put into place where, you know, we have security with our coaches that, like you, perhaps want to continue honing in on the craft and developing? Are there any, you know, systems we could put in place to keep them in there and keep them driven and inspired?
Well, I think they've already started, actually. I think they've already started in that direction. But what you're saying, they would certainly help us to speed things up. But they've already started in that direction. Like Garfield's a level 3 coach now. And we were talking together and so on. And I think we're getting help. We're getting help from the association, I mean the Olympics, and from the government and so on, to help bring about just what you're talking about. As to how much from the budget, I don't know about that yet, but certainly we should pursue that.
Okay.
But they've definitely made a start in that direction.
Well, Coachy, thank you so much for spending the time with me. I learned a lot, as I always do, talking to you. And, you know, I think I'm just so happy that you're so willing to continue sharing your knowledge, continue sharing your experiences, because these are the kind of conversations that really give people an insight, especially the ones who don't know you as well as I do. You know, what it takes to succeed, you know, what this beautiful sport is all about and how it relates to life. And I can't thank you enough for doing this. And, you know, I wish you nothing but the best in your semi-retirement and maybe one day full retirement. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed it.